What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with another pod. We're in the dog days of summer right now, but it's still what's going on in pop culture right now. Thankfully, there is some stuff to talk about. Talk about the Apple TV Plus, Idris Elba thriller series Hijack, definitely one of the TV surprises of the year. Of course, Winning Time, Season 2, back on HBO. Love the first season. Only Murders in the Building, the mystery comedy series on Hulu, back for Season 3. So I think 3 notable TV shows to get into here. Some music from TDE rapper Reason, his second album, and Noname, her first album since 2018. Very exciting. And also a new video game movie from PlayStation, Gran Turismo. So yeah, it's an August pod. Not the heaviest of hitters, but some stuff to get into. So make sure, of course, you hit the link below, linktree.com/nostalgiapod, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, and subscribe any way you can, please. And of course, also see the link below for the best of 2023 Spotify playlist that I'm updating every week with my favorite songs of the year. And yeah, let's get right into it. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Reason's second album, Porches. Yes, Reason, the Top Dog Entertainment rapper, back with his first album since 2020. Been a few years. Reason, I think notable, of course, for being signed to TDE, which in and of itself is notable, but also, I think being one of those rappers that had kind of a later in life come up and breakthrough, not really making noise until his late 20s, then breaking through, getting that signing to TDE, etc. And, since that time, obviously Top Dog Entertainment has kind of moved into a new direction era, obviously, with the departure of Kendrick Lamar from the label. And Reason has, been, one of the more recent signees that has made some noise. And I think he's largely positioned alongside Doechii as, a standard bearer, a someone to carry the label into the future. Who knows how long SZA and Schoolboy Q have on the label as well, and Isaiah Rashad, not the most active artist. So yeah, I think a lot's kind of been placed on Reason, and I think a lot like, some of his TDE peers, he's not someone who's going to make big hits and totally break through, but I do find him as a pretty interesting artist. I think, if I think back on his last album, New Beginnings from 2020, it was like pretty solid, pretty good, because Reason, to his credit, the reason why he was signed, very skilled technical rapper, very competent. He has a pretty nice, like, kind of gruff persona on the mic. He's nice to listen to. I think what holds Reason back from like hitting that next like level up is that Reason is perhaps not like there's maybe like an it factor missing, and I think what's nice about Porches, which I think is definitely better than the previous album. I like Porches. I think what's nice about Porches is this is probably the most effective Reason has been as a lyrical artist, especially when he gets introspective, speaking about himself and like this, getting into that storytelling bag a little bit. I was quite compelled. If I had to make my biggest criticism of Porches as a record is just that it's a bit long. 17 songs, 57 minutes. It's too much. If we cut this down a little bit, I think it'd be quite special. Or maybe not special, that's a little strong, but it would just be a lot tighter and I think a lot more fun to be with, What's also kind of admirable about Porches is that Reason kind of jumps around, sonic ideas and stuff. There's like G-Funk on here. There's, like choiry vibes, some traditional jazz rap that we'd associate with like a Kendrick style rap song. It goes a bit around, moves a bit around, and it's pretty interesting, I think, under the hood with the production. So I give him credit for that as well. But yeah, just kind of jumping into the song list here. I thought the second song, Caucasian Estates, which is an amazing song title, the beat drop there's super hard. I love that. The next song, At It Again, really awesome drums. Then track 4, A Broken Winter Break, featuring Sir, also on TDE, and Killin. A Broken Winter Break is the best song off Porches. That is a classic like G-Funk song. The kick drum, the keys, amazing track. I love the storytelling style you get from Reason on this. Definitely his best like Kendrick impression to me, but also like really nice features. Like there's just a lot of like warmth, I think, to that production. I really like that song. Definitely something I immediately revisited on the record here. Going through the track list some more, Send You to the Afterlife, exclamation point. I really liked Reason's performance on that. The bass is nice, but Reason kind of like switches up his delivery halfway through, really showing his mic skills pretty good. I also quite enjoyed Gina, parentheses, August Alsina, kind of a funny song title there. Just really nice flow from Reason on that one. I like that one. Too Much is, again, like an example of like a bit of a sonic change where very soulful song. And that's where you get like really awesome flow from Reason, but probably the most introspective personal lyrics on the album, on Porches. Bussin', exclamation point, WB part 2, really gloomy keys, really hard. I wouldn't say it's drill, but the keys maybe would remind you of it in a certain sense. Family First, towards the end, also with Sir and also Zakari from TDE. Like that one as well. Yeah, I think it's pretty solid. I think Reason, he's probably an artist that will float under the radar in terms of the rap world. He's not mainstream. He's not super popular. He's not a hit maker. But if you give him the time and listen to that stuff, there's stuff to like. And if you're a TDE fan, it makes sense. You understand why Reason is on the label. So even why maybe the ceiling is not as high as the ceiling we associate with some of the most famous people to grace, the halls of Top Dog Entertainment, that's okay. He's a pretty solid artist, pretty solid rapper. I was happy to listen to Porches. Let me know what you thought of Porches, though, and for more rap reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, Well My Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of Noname's second album, Sundial. Her first album since 2018's Room 25. It has been a minute for Noname. Noname, not the most mainstream rapper, but certainly one who's got a lot of love and attention since that first mixtape, Telephone, came out back in 2016. People that are into this type of music are very into Noname, and for good reason. She is a very intriguing, lyrical artist with a unique voice and a strong point of view. And it's been, a bit disappointing that we haven't gotten as much music as we would have hoped from someone who got a lot of love and attention really once she broke through. 5 years since the last album. We finally got Sundial. Not that Noname has necessarily gone away. She's been, of course, very active online, speaking her mind on her personal politics and views on things. She's very outspoken, very committed to what she believes in, a very liberal, sometimes socialist outlook on society and culture and consumerism and capitalism and things of that nature. And she's very, I think, very adept at being an advocate for her causes. And that is, it kind of engendered her to a certain type of fan base as well. Maybe like a specific subculture, within her fan base is interesting. She's definitely unique in terms of an artist that people are checking for because people like the music. And then she's also quite that outspoken, kind of really going against the grain in terms of a lot of her peers in hip hop. And, it's been, I think, probably like the most notable thing from the music side of things. Obviously, she's done a lot of, I think, kind of like activist stuff with her book club initiative and whatnot. But, a few years back, she kind of clapped back at J. Cole, who had a kind of a chauvinistic response to something she had said. Anyway, Noname's Sundial, 11 songs, 32 minutes. It's a really good album. And I think what's really good about it is, despite that brief runtime, Noname, just because of how lyrical, how intelligent she is with her rapping and her writing, is able to, I think, weave a lot into that short runtime. She has a lot to say, and because she's so skilled, she says it in a very interesting way. I think what really sets her apart, she's hardly the only person to share opinions in rap or anything like that. But Noname stands out for being unafraid to really speak her mind and like flame people and like not take prisoners. And what I think makes it so refreshing from Noname is that she fully acknowledges that she also has personal flaws and contradictions, and she will do and put herself on blast right after calling out somebody else more famous than her. And I find that very refreshing, that she is as self-aware as she is, and I think it just comes across really well. Just kind of going through this track list here, like thinking about like the songs, things she talks about. I think the song that probably is best example of all of this would be towards the middle of the track list, "Namesake," where Noname, calls out rappers supporting the NFL, like Jay-Z, and people performing at the Super Bowl, like Kendrick and Rihanna, as the NFL props up the military with the jets flying overhead, things of that nature. Throughout this, she's definitely a critic of consumerism and capitalism, and she on that song, though, I think was really cool about it, because right after she flames people for associating with the NFL, she also acknowledges her own faults, where she said she wouldn't perform for Coachella, but then she just did that this past year, and she's like, fuck, compromising herself for the money, and how some people, will, quote, sell out for the money, and that's also okay. People got to get paid. And like she kind of acknowledges the gray area and the messiness of a lot of her points of view and how she fits into all those. And I think the fact that really she's not painting things in a broad brush, it's not being painted in a black and white way. It'd be awesome if more people expressed their feelings in such a way, I think another interesting way she frames things is, I think she's pretty dedicated as a critic of consumerism, where just because the people winning are black doesn't mean it's okay if they're just kind of selling out and like pushing, corporate shit, again, refreshing point of view. She kind of, she flames Obama on this, which perhaps is a bit of a low hanging fruit. Nonetheless, she does do it. And also I think something else she's pretty consistent with is, struggling with white America's like open, continued access and relationship with black culture. Noname definitely feels very protective of that. I think she really gets right into this too, around the beginning. Just the second song, "Hold Me Down." Track 3, "Balloons," features Jay Electronica. Jay Elec, obviously we know Jay Elec, how talented he is as a rapper, but he's really wilding on this rapping, really grabbing people's ears, referencing Farrakhan and bad-mouthing Zelensky in Ukraine, things like that. Jay Elec also recently has really kind of been exposed as a kind of blatant anti-Semite, honestly more egregious than anything Kanye has done, to be honest, because Jay Elec seems really, really about that shit. Interesting, though, that I didn't really put this together myself. I saw someone else make this observation. Interesting, though, that Noname, so critical of Jay-Z, would then work with someone so closely associated with Jay-Z in Jay Elec. Nonetheless, contradictions are present. Also, like, Noname isn't afraid to get super personal. I think one of the best songs on this is "Toxic," which is really just about Noname shitting on a dude who, like, she was in some kind of relationship with, and things went sour. Like, just the way she goes about that, though, she's just so talented. "Beauty Supply," also really nice. Love the call and response to that, understated delivery. That's more about, like, her own struggles with, beauty standards that society puts on her, Interesting. "Gospel," featuring Silk Money, Billy Woods, and Stout. Billy Woods sounds great on this. Of course, that song has a choir with that title. Why wouldn't it? Sounds awesome. "Oblivion," the last song with Common. Really like the switching up of deliveries on that. Really nice bass. I wasn't sure if that was Thundercat. It definitely reminded me of it, though. Just in general, like, I think the production on this is so textured, so layered. And, like, it's just a nice fit with someone like Noname, who, as I've been going in, she's been saying a lot and, like, has a lot to get into and say and really, like, analyze and think about. But also as a rapper, like, she has a kind of a unique voice where she's just kind of like really light on her feet, light on the mic, but it still kind of grabs your ear, grabs your attention. Just it's a bit of a unique delivery, even though it doesn't like beat you over the head with it being like super aggressive or like hard or anything like that. Just she has, I think, just a lot of unique qualities. And yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily like Sundial has like anything that's like a hit. Like, I don't know if I want to revisit too many of these songs. You know, like this is all a pretty far cry from Diddy Bop off Telephone, which is as the name suggests, a actual bop that Noname made. Love that song. I don't think we have anything quite like this, but as a total body of work with something real to say, it's pretty impressive, and I think definitely one of the best rap albums of the year thus far. So shout out Noname, shout out Sundial. Be very interesting to see what's next for her, whether we have this long a wait again for music. Noname often considers like leaving music behind, and she definitely is someone who probably beats herself up over a lot about like ethical consumption and her place within the things she criticizes, the institutions she criticizes, right? So hoping she can find a way to continue to be an artist, because she's definitely a compelling one. We'll see what happens, but let me know, how did you feel about Noname's Sundial? How are you feeling about her as an artist these days? And for more rap reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Only Murders in the Building, Season 3, the Hulu comedy series, the most successful Hulu comedy series, back for its third season. Steve Martin, Martin Short, Selena Gomez, our trio is back to solve another murder in the Arconia in New York. Of course, this is a series that kind of came out of nowhere back in 2021, became a big hit. And for me, I've always been kind of lukewarm on this show, but it's still quite easy to watch and be with. It's pleasant, it's nice, it's an easy watch. And I think for me, the one thing I've always had to get over is it's not like that funny of a show. It's not a laugh out loud show. It's a far cry from like What We Do in the Shadows, for example, speaking of Hulu. Despite all that, it's just kind of fun to be with these characters. And even if things are kind of treated with kid gloves and there's not a lot of negativity or true conflict to the show, it is kind of nice. Obviously kind of bust out as this nice like meta like parody of like true crime and the meta commentary that ensued. But now I think it's just kind of about like the twists and the plotting, but it has like a solid heart to it, and I think that has to be the appeal if you're watching the series. Season 2 ended with Oliver, Martin Short's character. Oliver, his play, The Death Rattle, opening night, their star, Ben Glenroy, played by Paul Rudd, dies on stage. And that is our hook for season 3, right? A death outside the Arconia. It was a murder outside the building. Just kidding, of course. Season 3, episode 1, we find out that Glenroy manages to survive that. He gets revived from the stage, and he dies actually in the building, pushed through an elevator shaft at the end of the first episode, or second episode, whatever it was, 2-episode premiere on Hulu. And yeah, we're back. And I think what's fun is Paul Rudd's bringing nice energy as his actor, character. He's kind of like a gregarious, high maintenance, famous actor. And through all the flashbacks, we're going to spend a lot of time with Paul Rudd, and that's pretty fun. In this premiere, we flash back, 4 months in the past to the first table read for the play, and just it's fun to be with Paul Rudd. Also, his character Ben Glenroy is has a role in his past called Cobro, and it's just a really funny meta homage, or not homage, meta lampooning of Rudd's own career. Obviously, of course, playing Ant-Man. It's like a very similar self-own from this show. I fit right at home to me. Ashley Park joins the cast as someone involved with the play. Jesse Williams joins the cast as a documentarian character for Paul Rudd's character. It sounds like Jesse Williams and Selena Gomez will be spending a lot of time in the season together. And of course, the big name, Meryl Streep, returning to television. I believe this is her first series appearance since Big Little Lies season 2. Meryl Streep joins the cast as a actor in the play called Loretta. And Meryl was pretty good in the start. Obviously showcasing her accent work, which she's been famous for decades at this point in this premiere. And yeah, definitely ratcheting up the star power with Rudd and Streep, and even someone like Ashley Park, who I'm a fan of, who's having a nice year with Beef and Joyride thus far. And yeah, I guess I'm just kind of like on board for the ride. Like the conflict to me is like so light that I just try and like it doesn't really like register for me. Like, oh, Mabel's moving out of the Arconia. Something tells me that that's not gonna come across any meaningful way on the series because this trio of characters, the actors who play them, are executive producers of the series. So we will be seeing Mabel a lot. I would still imagine if that she does in fact move out. I don't think that matters too much to us. Howard, who we know from the ensemble, is Oliver's assistant on the play. Nice way to keep him involved. Yeah, I think just like it's just kind of nice to be with the group, I guess. And Oliver has gotten less grating as a character through the run of the show thus far. He used to be a very annoying presence to be with as someone who's super over the top, but also kind of unreasonable. Charles, Steve Martin's character, pretty nice, pretty kind, fun enough. And Selena, it's never her role as Mabel has never been my favorite Selena performance. I actually think she's like a pretty solid actor, but the Mabel character is just kind of introverted in ways that I feel like kind of mute Selena's natural charms as a performer. Nonetheless, I enjoy the series for what it is, even if I don't really love the show. And I guess season 3 seems to continue that, and I'm interested in it more than previously just because there's some extra big name actors involved. So we'll see if they reinvent the wheel in any way. Not too sure, but I'm sure the twists will be fun enough. They always, the rhythm of introducing a new suspect to the audience and to our characters, and then kind of clearing that person's name and keeping you going. It's a nice way of keeping you invested. And even if I think ultimately, like the first 2 seasons, who ended up being the murderer was largely besides the point, and some of the least memorable stuff about how the series was going. So it's more a journey than a destination type of show as well. I expect that to continue. But yeah, season 3, it's back, 2 episodes out. Of course, it's a half-hour comedy series, very easy to watch still. But let me know, how are you feeling about Only Murders season 3? Anything you're looking for in season 3 as a change that you want to see? And for more TV reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Hijack, the thriller miniseries on Apple TV Plus starring Idris Elba. I would say easily one of the surprise TV shows of the summer, probably the number one surprise at that. Quite enjoyed this. Obviously came out of nowhere for me. I think it came out of nowhere for a lot of people. But honestly, a nice little W for Apple. And I'll spoil everything to follow. But yeah, I thought this was pretty good. 7-episode miniseries from George K. and Jim Field Smith. George K. should sound familiar. He, of course, brought Lupin to Netflix, the French, detective series with Omar Sy. And, you have that pedigree. Apple spends a lot of money on the shows they do make. Looks great. And, of course, starring Idris Elba, one of our great stars we have today. Also has a few other familiar faces, such as Archie Punjabi. And yeah, I think it's just a great example of executing on a tried and true format or premise. This is not just a thriller, but it's a thriller on an airplane. This is about a plane hijacking in modern times. And that is just, something people like. It's a very compelling, very thrilling, and when done right, it's going to entertain. And, thinking about movies like Air Force One, whatever you think of, it like being with a hijacked plane and putting yourself in the situation of the people, you're seeing on screen, that is, I think, a really just compelling premise to have about something. And, of course, when you have Idris Elba as Sam Nelson, your lead, Idris, I think, obviously he's been a star for, some time now, right? Probably almost 10 years. People know him, The Wire, Luther, movies. Idris Elba's one of his best strengths is just his sheer presence, right? And in this case, he's not playing someone who's all physicality. He's playing like a thinker, a strategist. His character is literally a corporate business negotiator. And his character, Sam, has to try and figure out how he can manipulate and subvert and thwart the hijackers who have taken over his plane and solely for his own self-interest, right? To make sure that they don't all crash and die, right? And I think that is broadly compelling, but Idris is really good at carrying this as a series. Um, I think where this show, 7 episodes, I didn't think it ran too long. It was pretty compelling, more or less like each hour of the flight from Dubai to London, more or less is an episode, give or take. It's pretty well paced. I would say the biggest gripe, I think, is probably the most common gripe you would have with Hijack, is that despite liking it, despite being very entertained and compelled the whole time, I'm definitely less compelled with the stuff outside of the flight, like the back on the ground. There ends up being a fair amount of subplots to Hijack. They're all connected. They're all revolving around this criminal group that is behind the hijacking, their motivations for that, and the way they succeed in pulling off this hijacking is how they basically blackmail people and threaten their families and stuff. You understand. But some of those beats are just not quite as interesting as just being up in the sky with Idris and the crew, being like in the high stakes environment up there. It's certainly high stakes on the ground. It's just not nearly as interesting or as refreshing. It doesn't feel as special. So, when we learn about Idris's son's mother, his estranged wife, that wife, or the mother of his kid, has a new boyfriend who is a police detective, and that police detective happens to also be the ex of Archie Punjabi's character at the in the English government. Like all of that, like they don't spend a lot of time on it, but like we just kind of like don't need that much detail. I don't think. There's also a lot of stuff going on with this criminal gang. They send these like professional cleaning crews, cleaning in quotes, of course, these assassination groups to keep things in check and tie up their loose ends. And like, while that's harrowing, it's not nearly as interesting. Also, I think with Hijack, there are some plot holes if you think about things. Nothing that detracts from the effectiveness of the plot or the feeling you get watching the series. But I mean, there's definitely some notes to give. Like, for example, the police detective, who's dating Idris's ex-wife, he manages to go from like the English countryside all the way to downtown London to save Idris's son in the span of one episode, span of a few minutes. Like, even with the sirens on, not the most plausible thing. There's some moments like that. I did enjoy a lot of the stuff with air traffic control and the English government in terms of how do they handle the situation? What do they do? Do they shoot down the plane? Backing it up a few episodes from the finale, you have, I believe it was the Romanian government and Air Force threatening to take down the plane. All of that's really good. Archie Punjabi, always good. The Home Secretary and the Foreign Secretary, whatever the titles were in the English government, they're back and forth and going over what decisions they can and can't make. Is there a choice to make? What do you do? That's all pretty compelling. Definitely taking some shots at the English Prime Minister, obviously an unnamed Prime Minister, but not ascribing much power or agency to the role. They're basically say like, "Oh, she'll just do what we tell her to do." Like, it's pretty funny. The hijackers up in the sky were pretty interesting as villains. And watching the rest of the plane, the people being hijacked, them having to figure things out and thwart the hijackers through secret messages and signals, and just that's all pretty fun. Again, like, you put yourself in those shoes. Yeah, I think the end of episode 6 leading into episode 7, the finale, the end of episode 6, which actually has that really great twist where you realize that there's like some quote like sleeper agents up in the sky, where the other hijackers didn't know that there was someone else on board that had something to do. This person, Amanda, we learn her name. Amanda kills the pilot, domes him right in the head, and then takes control of the aircraft and locks the door. And like, that's how the penultimate episode ends. Really, I think, awesome, like, twist, or like ratcheting up the energy once again. Really great. Again, spoilers. I don't know why you listen to this if you didn't know, but when you watch the plane land, and I don't think there was much doubt that they would succeed. Like, especially like early on, all these guns being pointed in Idris Elba's face. It's like, I mean, I know he's not going to die. We know that. It's okay. But like, really great plane crash, like on the strip. I thought that was pretty good. Yeah, I mean, not a whole lot more to say. I don't think it was I think a really solid thriller. Partially, I think because it was unexpected. Partially because Idris Elba's presence and star power and just kind of the grace he has as a performer really fit the role of Sam Nelson and really fit the role of carrying this series. So all of that was a great match. And yeah, I think just the hijack airplane thriller mini subgenre just really ripe for compelling stuff. A lot of talk about is there gonna be a hijack season 2. I think this was definitely an unexpected hit for everyone involved. Um, Obviously, you could do a season 2. There are some loose ends with the criminal gang. One of their leaders escaped. They seem to be a well planned organization. And I was pretty compelled by the fact that their motivations for this was to do a bear raid on Kingdom Airlines and short that airline stock. And then when this happens, the stock obviously goes in the complete gutter, and they make all this money on the short. Pretty interesting, like motivation, right? It wasn't as simple as let's just free our criminal leaders from prison. I like that there was a little more to it. I guess there's more on the bone with that villain if you wanted. Obviously, it'd be pretty contrived to have Idris Elba happen to be in another plane that gets hijacked. I imagine it would be a more convoluted reason that happened with this gang, and they know who Sam is. So I'd imagine it'd be pretty messed up plot to get to that point. You could pull it off though, because I mean, a lot of people have compared Hijack to 24, and Idris in the Kiefer Sutherland role. I suppose you could find a way to do it, and I'm not necessarily opposed to it. Honestly, obviously, you'd have a whole new cast up in the sky. You could get some other actors, bigger name actors, up in the plane for the most part. There was no one too famous up there. So it's possible. I'm not necessarily asking for it, but I'm not opposed if it happens either. But let me know, how did you feel about Hijack? Are you looking for a season 2? Or are you more ambivalent like me? Let me know what you thought. And for more TV reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Winning Time Season 2 on HBO. Very excited for Winning Time to be back in our lives. I loved Season 1. Of course, it's the story of the Showtime Lakers, Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, with I think a really awesome mix of excellent casting, period detail, and real genuine strong TV filmmaking flair and production value. Love the show. Back for season 2. Can't wait, because there's a lot more to this story. Season 1 wrapping up with the Showtime Lakers winning their first championship in 1980. And of course, we know that this is just the beginning, as the Lakers and Celtics, Magic and Bird, that rivalry is just at the surface, just at the beginning. So there's a lot to get into here. And season 2 doesn't really waste any time. Interestingly, though, it starts off with a flash forward all the way to 1984 NBA Finals Game 1, where the Lakers steal a game from Boston in Boston. And it's like, we're kind of skipping ahead a little bit. They immediately back us up 4 years, back to 1980, in the aftermath of the first Laker ring. And it's like, okay, so it seems like we're building up to 84, so we're going to go through a few years now, skip some time, whereas season 1 was really just about the build up to 80, the first, really about one real season. Seems like we're skipping ahead a little bit. I'm kind of interested why that is, because Winning Time as a series has the potential to be much more of an anthology. If you want to skip ahead and leave the Showtime era behind, move on to the Kobe Gasol run, or of course Kobe Shaq before that. There's potential to switch up what Winning Time is. It's on HBO. Seems like it's an expensive show to make. I've had in the back of my mind, I wonder if this is something like David Zaslav and Warner Bros. Discovery would love to cut and not continue. But hopefully HBO will protect the show and keep it going, because there's a lot of meat on this bone, and I think it's done really well. There's a lot of controversy with season 1, with Jason Clarke's portrayal of Jerry West, and in general, there's a lot of just talk about the accuracies that this show has. Of course, it doesn't present itself as a documentary. It does things for creative license. It makes composite characters, etc. It fudges the timeline. Of course, Jeannie Buss is much more involved in the show's timeline than she was in real life at the time with similar events. Yada yada. It's fine. I find it very compelling. I'm cool with it. But I'll be interested to see if there's any additional controversy about the show, or if like it's just gonna be the same people kind of whining about the same stuff. I'm not sure, but I mean, the core tenets remain though, right? Like Quincy Isaiah as Magic Johnson is spectacular. You need to nail that casting because Magic was such a big character, obviously still to this day, and they did that. He's great. John C. Reilly as Jerry Buss, Dr. Buss, the owner of the Lakers, great, awesome casting. Really nails it, nails that persona that Dr. Buss had as a philandering but also really sharp businessman. Adrian Brody really coming into his own. Pat Riley with the flash forward in episode 1. You see the slicked back classic Riley hair, the look we know. Really like him. Tracy Letts was Jack McKinney in season 1. I don't think we're going to see him again, obviously, the way the story's going, but he was awesome. Jason Segel, though, really fun as Paul Westhead. I don't know if these are accurate portrayals, but I don't really care because the show is really compelling to me. Hadley Robinson as Jeannie Buss, and really like her. Gabby Hoffman as Claire Rothman, awesome. Solomon Hughes, also really great as Kareem. Again, like Magic, you had to nail how Kareem was done, a person who had so many multitudes to his life. And if you didn't nail that casting, Kareem would come off as a bit of a caricature. But I think they really kind of nailed that. Shout out Solomon Hughes for that. Molly Gordon's on this show, kind of in the Jeannie orbit part of the series. I'm curious, like, how involved she would be. I'm not really sure. But obviously we know she's quickly rising, which Theater Camp and The Bear season 2. So if you get more of Molly Gordon, it'd probably be good for the show. We'll see. But like the filmmaking, obviously it's a period show, which makes it look nice anyway. But you have like really cool, like, switches of film stock and aspect ratio and like color grading and stuff. It's really stylized. It looks really awesome. I'm really looking forward to the rivalry with the Celtics. Michael Chiklis is Rhett Auerbach, who we saw back in season 1. Larry Bird is really portrayed as this kind of like, dipping hick, Midwestern white man. It's really funny. Like, I don't really care how accurate it is to Larry Bird. We know he did drink. I don't really care. It's funny. Like, and obviously in the flash forward scene at the beginning of this episode, they show the Boston crowd as this rowdy, like, mad, mob, which is hilarious. Curious to see the dynamic with the Buss family portrayed more in season 2. Obviously, we know that the Buss boys, Jeannie's brothers, are going to be more involved, and I think anyone who knows the story knows that they were not as competent as their father or their sister when it came to things of this nature. So interesting. Also, like, for NBA fans, it's really funny to hear like Buss talk about like being ahead of the curve with like cable and ESPN in terms of like the mainstreamization and the blowing up publicly of the NBA that's about to happen, and also the salary cap coming in and free agency changing, and Buss wanting to get ahead of the increase in player salaries and locking up his players with extensions. But of course, the Lakers at this time had to actually figure out where the money was, the tangible money to make these payments. Like, it's pretty interesting to see all that. It's fun. Kareem has the kid. I think that I believe that must be accurate. But yeah, in season 1, episode 1 of season 2 sets us right up with this 81 season where Magic Johnson has, I believe, a knee injury, and like devastating knee injury, and the Lakers now have to right the ship or just hold on to the wheel until Magic can come back so they can hopefully get into the playoffs and then still make a championship run. And if you know what happened in that season, of course, Magic's recovery time, specifically, maybe this won't be as suspenseful. But I think it's just a really fun dramatization. And, Quincy Isaiah being a ladies' man, as Magic, of course, was, is pretty fun. I guess, like, one thing that's, like, kind of so-so for me is, like, Magic's, like, will they, won't they, with his, at this time in the show, estranged ex-girlfriend, Cookie. I think most people know that Magic Johnson ended up marrying and is still with his loving wife, Cookie. They have kids together. Like, that's, like, not super suspenseful to me. I guess it's fine. I don't know. But yeah, I just really enjoy the show, and I feel like it's kind of odd that it's coming out in like the dog days of summer in mid-August amidst the writer's strike as well. So like feel like there's no buzz about this show. You know, like when it came out, season 1 came out, it was like, you know, March, April time, I believe. Like, definitely people were more locked in on new release at the time. Feels like it's kind of being sent out when there's not a lot of attention for it. So I hope that's not the case, and I hope that the ratings still deem it successful enough that they can keep the show going, because I think this is a kind of endless potential with a show like this. It's just really enjoyable, and I'm also someone who doesn't care about the inaccuracies, so I just really enjoy the ride. But yeah, Waiting Time Season 2, I'm expecting it to be a lot of fun, even if maybe it won't be quite as fresh and new as Season 1 was, which is like a really like awesome like blast of like, wow, this is like a really like developed idea with all these things humming. Even if that won't feel as new this time around, I'm happy to still be in this world of, you know, the 80s Lakers versus Celtics NBA. Quite fun. But let me know, how'd you feel about the start of Wing Time Season 2? Or is there something you're looking for that for Season 2 that you didn't get in Season 1? And yeah, for more TV reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, well, my nostalgia? Dave here with a review of Gran Turismo, the new video game adaptation film from PlayStation Productions. This film was also interesting because it's based on a true story, telling the real life story of Jan Mardenborough, a English racer who, like Jan in the film, is a Gran Turismo sim racer who ends up winning a competition and actually becoming a real, genuine race car driver. And that's kind of the, you know, basis for a lot of creative liberty being taken, but that's the basis for a kind of underdog, rags to riches type, you know, sports story. Of course, directed by Neil Blomkamp, who once upon a time tried to make a Halo movie. He's actually making a video game movie now, funny enough, and starring, you know, two big name actors here: David Harbour, who plays a former racer who ends up being like the trainer, like engineer for Jan as he tries to come up, and Orlando Bloom plays this Nissan like kind of marketing executive who is kind of the one who births this idea to recruit the best sim racers in the world and try and make a real genuine like racing team and make racing careers as a result. Fun premise. I think right off the bat, it's got to say like Harbour's awesome as this kind of gruff racer with some regrets. He's also, it's fun because he's very anti this idea. He doesn't believe in these sim racers, doesn't think they can hack it. And that comes across really well. Also, nice to be with Orlando Bloom. I think a lot of people love Orlando Bloom, myself included. He hasn't been the most active or prolific in a while now, but he's just kind of really fun in this role as a kind of executive character. So yeah, I quite enjoyed that. I think what's my biggest gripe with the movie is Archie Madekwe, who plays Jan. You know, he was in Midsommar. He's been in some stuff, but I did not really care for his performance. I don't know if that's how it was on the script. And that's how Jan is in real life, but I thought Archie was just kind of a bit of a wet noodle, a bit of a, you know, lack of a presence. He didn't emote very well to me. I thought he was a bit of a downer as your lead protagonist here. But the film itself, you know, it's quite formulaic and predictable in the sense you know how it's going to go. A lot of sports cliches that we recognize, right? Despite all that, I think it's done like convincingly and like genuinely enough that it's like still a pretty fun story, fun time watching the come up. And I guess the fact that Jan is legitimately like an underdog in the sense that he's a sim racer trying to be a real racer. Obviously, sim racing doesn't prepare you for the physical demands of being in the car. And that's pretty interesting. You know, I think there's a lot of like interesting cliches here. Like we have not one but two photo finishes, just very unrealistic kind of thing. You have to leave a lot of, I think, suspension of disbelief at the door, right? Like the way this goes, Jan of course wins the initial competition against other Gran Turismo sim racer players. He wins that initial competition, obviously, and then progresses, and he's in, I believe, like Super GT series in Europe, driving like, you know, GTR cars. And it's cool to like go visit other tracks that, like, if you're a racing fan, you would recognize. Like they go to Hockenheim in Germany, they go to the Red Bull Ring, they go to the Nürburgring in Germany, which is the scene of a really big crash famous crash that really happened in Jan's life, although when it happens in the timeline of the film is completely different, which has been controversial to some. I think what's and then after all this happens, Jan ends up racing in the 24 hours of Le Mans. I feel like a lot of that you just have to like be willing to yada yada. Like a brand new racer basically jumps through multiple series like very, very quickly. You just have to like acknowledge that's okay. And of course, his rivals on the track follow him to every one of these series and events. It's like it's a bit convenient. If you know how like racing works and stuff, you might like recognize the lack of like realistic competition there. It doesn't matter. It doesn't detract from the movie. It's fine. I think it's interesting though that like this film is positioning like this aversion to sim racing, and I guess maybe it makes sense because the way the story takes place, we're talking about like over 10 years ago when this story really happened, but nowadays it's almost coming at like a odd time because sim racing has honestly been embraced in the world of motorsport, right? You think about Formula One racers, like some of the best in the game right now, people like Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, they sim race all the time and talk about how it helps them be real racers. Like that's where we're at, where sim racing is a tool used by people that really race cars, not to mention a way to just to learn tracks and stuff like that. So it's not the most like effective, I guess, piece of conflict if the story was taking place today, I guess because it's dated back in 13 years ago ish, and the fact that this actually is how it went with Jan, I guess that's okay. But that's something else I also noted. Also, it's kind of funny to me that like the main like villain, quote unquote, Jan's main rival in terms of on the track is I forget his name. He's Kappa, Nicholas Kappa. And he's like clearly like a pay driver, like really from a really wealthy family. Seems to not be English. It's perhaps a nod to like Nikita Mazepin in F1 or something like that. He seems to have like all this like clout, like popularity from like the press and stuff like that. And it's like also not a realistic portrayal of how pay drivers are actually viewed by the racing community. That kind of stood out to me. Also, I thought it was really funny that Jan's parents, his dad played by Joe Manhanshu, and his mom is played by Jerry Halliwell, aka Ginger Spice from the Spice Girls, aka the wife of the Red Bull F1 team's team principal, Christian Horner. Jerry Halliwell is a Formula One wag, and now she's actually in a movie about racing. It's not like she's a prolific actor. She doesn't act that often. That was kind of funny to me. I love that so specifically, like Jan's way to like calm himself down before a race is to listen to Kenny G, of course, the famous musician. Thought that was really funny. Really nice callback to how that's brought back in the film in the third act. I think overall, Blomkamp, who obviously I was a gigantic fan of when District 9 came out, he hasn't had quite the career I think we all expected him to. Some stuff that has its merits like Elysium, but nothing has come close to District 9. Neil Blomkamp, though, does a pretty good job of filming the racing, the action of it. I think it really progresses. There's some early Act 1 stuff that's a bit of a snoozer, right? Like the movie doesn't really take off until Jan gets to the Gran Turismo Academy and gets into the swing of the sports competition stuff. That's like the heart of the film. The early driving where he's driving his dad's car, that doesn't look too good. But like all the stuff on track is actually pretty credible. There's some fun like drone shots to really like speed you up, and it's cut in I think a pretty like solid way. Like I thought Neil did a pretty good job, him and his DP and whatnot. The big crash that happens at the Nürburgring where Jan goes airborne and crashes and kills a spectator tragically, which is how it really happened in real life. That is filmed, I think, in a really awesome way. That looks crazy. There's been some controversy where how that's portrayed, where it's basically positioned in the film as a motivating factor for Jan to get over the hump and become a real racer. And it was placed in a different part of the story than it really happened. In real life, that incident where Jan went airborne at the Nürburgring and the spectator was killed from the crash, that happened years after Jan podiumed at Le Mans. It was not motivation for Jan to stick it out and win or podium at Le Mans. So that's a bit of a change. I don't know if it's like super egregious, but some people have said it's in poor taste, which I can understand. This is the third release from PlayStation Productions this year. Of course, they started off last year with Uncharted with Tom Holland, and since then this year we got on this TV front The Last of Us on HBO, and recently Twisted Metal on Peacock, and now we have Gran Turismo on the big screen. We know there's some other stuff in the works, like God of War, but nothing imminent. PlayStation Productions seems to be kicking off, and much like how Mattel is rating their toy box post-Barbie, PlayStation realizes they have a vast library of IP to exploit. And I really wasn't expecting Gran Turismo as a video game adaptation to actually have the game Gran Turismo be front and center in the movie. It's largely a big ad for Gran Turismo. Like, they literally go to Polyphony, the developer of the game in Tokyo, and go to the studio and talk about the merits of the game. And the head of the studio is in the film, and played by an actor. Then the actual head of the studio has a cameo in the film too. Like, in a sense, you could see this as like big brand management. The PlayStation logos are everywhere. Gran Turismo as a name is everywhere. They make sure to show you some sim rigs to make you want to buy it. Like, there's some brand stuff going on for sure. That being said, I still was kind of surprised that like the name Gran Turismo would actually be like really like named like the Gran Turismo we understand. It's like part of the film. Kind of interesting. Yeah, this has actually been pushed back a few weeks. It's not officially going wide till August 25th. It's had a few weeks of like sneak peek screenings. I think part of that is due to the strike, but also because getting a little more breathing room from Barbenheimer, probably not the worst thing right now for other movies trying to make some cash. So all good. Should be interesting to see how it performs. I really do not have a good feel for what that tracking would be. But it's also not a movie that like I need a sequel from, for sure. This was a classic closed loop type thing, and I think we'd all be probably more invested in some of the more big name, dramatic PlayStation stories to be adapted, like Ghost of Tsushima or Horizon or God of War, etc. So probably the last we see of Gran Turismo on the big screen for some time, but honestly, pretty solid effort. You know, if you get past the brand stuff, you get past the cliche and the formula, it's a pretty fun time. Looks pretty nice. So yeah, Gran Turismo, let me know. What'd you think of the movie? Did you feel like it was an effective adaptation, if such a thing can exist with a video game movie these days? And for more movie reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. All right, that's going to do for the pod this week. Next week, we have definitely a heavier hitter coming, Ahsoka, the premiere on Disney Plus, Star Wars series. Cannot wait. The trailers look fantastic. And also a new DC superhero movie in Blue Beetle. And some other stuff as well, such as the comedy film Strays, new music. Going to get into that. Make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, linktree.com/nostalgiapod. See the link below for the best of 2023 Spotify playlist as well. Make sure you hit all those links. Let me know it's good, and I'll see you next week.